financial statements, payroll data. Yeah, I'm doing that. Payroll data. So these are some case studies with me. So we are going to work on these case studies. Stack data to column data, that is the address book. And multiple filters on single column. And rows to column data set. And invoice data, how to work with the invoice data. So now we are working with only the Power Query. So I have a sample data. Let's open the Power BI desktop. So this is the Excel sheet I have with me. So I have to clean up and filter this data. So with the help of Power Query. So we have to extract this Excel sheet into the query editor. So there we can clean up and we'll do some ETL work. So this data is not in the correct format. Like it's not in the table format. It's not in the column format. Because to generate the report, the data should be in the table format. So first we have to convert this data. We have to modify this data into the table format. So first get this data into the Power BI desktop. So we have a different sources here. So here my source is a Excel source. Excel is my source. So I'm going to take the unpivot financial statement. So my source file is financial statement. So first select the data, the raw data. So this data is not in the correct format. So I have this data with me. So this data is not in the correct format. That means it's not in the table format, column format. So I'm going to bring this data into the query editor. So coming to the column 1, so there is a data. Some data is available, some data is not available in the column 1, the group in revenue. So I want to fill up that data. So I'll use the transform fill down. So the data will be filled down. So the data will be filled up. So I think I already told you about the transpose. So how the transpose will work. So the rows will go to the columns and columns will come to the rows. I use the transpose. So there is a transpose option we have. Select on the column 1 and click on the transpose. And again use that column 1 and again select on the column 1 and I want to fill again down. So why I'm going to fill down? So there are the 2013 is there and null values also we have. So I want to fill up that data. So I want to use the fill down. So here, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to merge the data, the column 1 and the column 2. So just click on column 1 and column 2 and merge the columns with the separator and give the separator. And this is my separator. And again I want to convert these columns, these rows into the columns. So again I want to use the transpose transformation. So I can repeat the steps here. So here if you see the data, so my data is not in the correct format. So I will use some transformations here. Use that. I'll convert into the proper format for the report purpose. So first select on the column 1. So the data is not available. So some data is showing the null values. some data is showing the null value. So I'll use the fill. I'm going to fill it down in the column 1 and select on the column 1. So what the transpose will do, so here I have the data like a category, something here. I have the data here. So whenever I apply this transpose on it, so after applying the transpose transformation, so the rows will go to the column section. And columns will come to the rows section. So the same concept I am going to apply on the column 1. So the rows will go to the columns. Click on the transpose. And select the column 1. I want to fill up the data. So there are some null values. So use the fill down. I got the data. So now here I want to match this column 1 and the column 2. So we have a merge transformation. So I'm going to merge with the custom separator. So the data is merged here, 2013 and East, 2013 and West. And here I want to transpose the data again. The data is transposed. And here you can see the 2013 East, 2013 West. So that column, that row I want to take as a header. So click on the transform, use first row as headers. So select, click on the, highlight the group and the subgroup and use the unpivot. So we have a concept. I'm going to unpivot it. The rows will come to the columns will come to the rows. The other are the 2014 East, 2013 South. These are the columns. So that will come to the rows. So use the. So here I got the group section. I got the group column, and I got the subgroup. And in this attribute column, so I want to I want to split that column. So it contains the year and the reason. So I want to split the column with the delimiter. Click on OK. So I split that column into the year and the reason. Year and the reason. Now the data is in the correct format. The data is in the table format. It contains the columns, group column, another is a subgroup column, another is a year column, and reason, the last one is the amount. So now we can create the report with the help of this data. To generate the report, we require the table format data. So I converted this data into the column data. So this data, which contains the group, subgroup, year, reason, and amount. So you may get this type of data also at workplace. So we can't create the report with the help of this data. So first we have to convert into the column data with the help of transformations which are available in the query editor. So now you can create the report with the help of this data. So you may get this type of data also. So this data is in completely matrix format. So I'm converting that matrix format data into the table format data. So let's see another scenario. So if you have the payroll data, like a payslip data, if they give the payslip data, so you have to convert into the column data. So I have the payroll data with me. Yeah, here you have this payroll data with me. So Akash is an employee. So these are the details about his salary. So this is about one payslip, and Arthi is another second payslip. So the different employees payslips are available in the source data. So I want to convert the data into this format. So this format is suitable for the creation of visuals. So first bring this data. Into the query editor. So take the source as an Excel sheet and bring this data into the query editor. So here I want to take the payroll data one. So now we got the data here. If you observe the first column, the name column, so the employee name is a Akash. It's showing the null values from the second row to the 15th row. So first I want to fill up the data. So how can we fill up the data? So click on the name column and come to the transform tab. You have a fill option and click on the fill down, and you will get the name of the employee Akash and name of the employees Arti, and we have so many employees here. So similarly, click on the designation and do the same thing, fill down. And here I want to add one column here. So click on add column, and I'm going to create a condition here. So that name is category new. Category. So my third column is the category. If the category contains total, if category contains total, so then select a column, category. Otherwise, give the null value here. I have a category column here which contains, if it contains any total value, I want to display category only. Otherwise, I want to display the null value. So first remove the null values in the category. So I don't require the null values. So bring this category new here. So just drag and drop it. So drag and drop beside the category. So just click on the category new column. So there you can see the some null data is there. So I want to use fill up option here. I want to fill up this data, total earnings, and fill up the data. So use the transform fill up. So the data will be filled up. The values total earnings and total deductions. So if you observe this data, we have a total earnings and total deduction. We have two types of data, like a total earning, another is a total deduction. So I want to replace the data. If it is the total earning, I want to replace with E underscore. If the data is total deduction, click on the total deduction and click on the replace values. Click on the D underscore. So now merge the category and the category new. So without separator. So click on the category new and category and merge the columns. So without using any separator, and give the name of that column is the category. So I am merging the columns. So I am going to repeat these steps. So first get the data from the Excel sheet. My data is a payroll data. So this is the data about employee pay stubs. So get the data from the payroll data. Click on OK. So first column is telling about the employee names. So the data, we have some null values. So fill down the data first. So click on the name of the column and fill down. So employee names are filled up with the Akash and Aarti. And similarly on the second column, fill down the data first. And here I'm going to create a new custom column here with the conditional column. So my column name is a category. If the category contains the total, because that category column contains some data total. If it contains total, I want to give the value the category only, category column data. Otherwise I want to give the null data. So that's the category new. And come to the category column and remove the null values here. And bring this category, drag and drop beside the category. And fill up this data. So wherever you have the total earning, I want to replace with E underscore. So wherever I have the total deduction, I want to replace with D underscore. So now merge these two columns, category new and category. these two columns without using any separator. Okay, and give the name of that column is a category. The two columns are matched. So use the filter, text filters we have. So I don't require the total data. So which any rows which contains the total, I don't require the total data. So use the doesn't contain total. So the data I require. So in this column I don't have the total data. So if you see the data, I don't have the string, the total is doesn't exist in the category column. So now select the name, designation and the category. So here if you see the data, the January data is there, Feb, March. So I want to bring that columns into the rows. So I want to bring these all columns. So I want to bring this column data, the Jan data, Feb, March, that is a column data. I want to bring into the rows. So I have to use the unpivoted. If you use the unpivot, the columns will come to the rows. So select on the, so I can't select all the values here. There are so many values. I can't select all the values. So instead of that, I can select easily the name, designation, the category, and right click on it, unpivot other columns. So what are the other columns? The other columns are the Jan, Feb, March up to the December. So click on it. And you got the data. So the data is in the correct format. So this is the, so I converted the payslips data into the column data. This is the month. This is the amount. So now this data is suitable to create the visuals. So come to our Excel data. So I converted this payslip data into the column data. So our goal is, so if you don't have the proper format data, so you have to convert the data into the column data. So that column data is suitable for the report purpose. So let's see another case study. So we have a address data here. So here you can see the address that is not in the correct format. It contains the name, company and business address, city, office phone, then again the name. This is one record and this is another record and this is another record. So first get this data into the query editor and I have to convert into this data, the name, company, business address, city, office phone. So which are here, the name, the company, address, city, the office, the website. So whenever I use the Power Query transformations, So I want to convert the data into this format, the name, company, and the last column is the website. So first bring this data into the query editor. So my source is a Excel sheet. So what is the column? So I want to get this table 1 data. So I got in the column 1 and the column 2 data. So here I want to use an index here. So I want to give the index for each row. So I'm going to come to the add column and index column. I want to start with the number 1. So click on the from 1. So for each row it's giving the index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. I want to use a conditional column. So if index equal to 1, I want to give the output as 1. And I'm going to add the one more rule. And my column 1 contains the name, company, business address, right? So in the else statement, I'm using the another if statement. If the column 1 contains the name and semicolon. If it contains the name, I want to use a column name, that's the index only. So if the column 1 contains the name, I want to give the same index. Otherwise, I want to give the null. So I got this data. If index is 1, I want to give the 1 only. If it contains the name, I want to give the index value. Otherwise, for the other rows, company, business address, I want to give the null value. And here I want to fill up the data. So click on that column. So fill down the data and check the data type. Is it an whole number or not? So convert the data type into the whole number. And this one we don't require right now. So remove that column index. So this one So this is a one record. Up to the same number we have one, one, one. So this is a one record. And another record, the 777, that is another record. And 13, 13, that is another record. So click on that column 1, and I want to pivot the data. So click on the pivot option. So you want to pivot the values, the column with the column 2, and click on the advanced option. I don't want to aggregate it. So just click on OK. You will get the proper format data. And remove that custom column. We don't require that custom column here. So now I got the name column, company column, and business address column. So I'm going to repeat these steps. So for this data, I'm going to add an index. So how we can add the index for each record? So come to the add column, index column. I want to start with the number 1. Now I got the index. So from 1 to 6 I have one record. From 7 to 12 I have another record. So here I'm going to add one conditional column. So if index is equal to 1, then I want to give the output as a 1 only. In else condition, I am going to write another if statement. If column 1 contains the name, I want to give the index. The column 1 contains the name, I want to give the index. Otherwise, for the other columns like a city, state, website, I want to give the null. So I got the data. So for the name, I am giving the index. For the company business address, I am not giving the index numbers. I am giving the null numbers. And we don't require the index column here. Remove that. Remove that. So I want to convert these rows, the name, company, business address, city, state, office, website. I want to convert that rows into the columns. So that's why I am going to do the pivot here. Just select on the column 1 and click on the pivot. So values column is the column 2. So whenever you're doing the pivot, it will definitely ask the values column. The column 2 is the values column. But here I don't want to do the aggregate. I don't want to do the aggregate. So now the rows, the name, company, the business address, city, website, that rows will be converted into the columns. So just click on the OK. So now the rows are converted into the columns. So here we got one null value. We don't require these null values. Now we got the proper data. Okay, no, we didn't get the data. just I want to fill up it. So click on the custom. I want to fill the data and check it is a, I want to convert the data type into the whole number. And select on the column 1, and I want to convert these rows into the columns. For that I am going to use the pivot it. So pivot with the values column is the column 2. So whenever you are doing the pivot, it will definitely ask a column, the values column. So that values column, I don't want to aggregate it. Don't aggregate it. So then you will get the name column, the company, business address, everything you got it here. And now we don't require this column. Now we got the proper format data for the report purpose. So we discussed the address book and the payroll data, and also we discussed the financial statement case studies. So we discussed these 3 case studies. Let's come to the invoice data. So I have the invoice data here. So you may get this type of data also, invoice data. So I have this type of data with me. I want to convert into this data. So this is the formatted data. So take this source first. So if you observe this data, the Excel data, so this is the invoice data. I have a date information and invoice number, and these are the product IDs. I have the product IDs are here. So I want to take that product ID as a column, and also the subcategory. I have a subcategory here. That subcategory also into the column section. Similarly, category. So first bring this data into the query editor, the name invoice data. Yeah, this is our source data. So bring the data into the query editor first. So if you observe the data, so I want to convert the rows into the columns and the columns into the rows. So for that, click on that column 1 and use the transform transpose. So now the rows will be converted into the columns and the columns will come to the rows. So that's the purpose of the transpose. And now click on the column. Now we got the some category information, subcategory, and product ID information. And click on the column 1, column 2, and column 3. So first merge these columns. with the separator, give some separator. I want to use some custom separator. And do again the transpose. So then I'll get the invoice and invoice date. So purpose of transpose is it converts these rows into the columns and columns into the rows. So again click on the transpose. So click on this column 1. So better to use first row as headers. Okay. And then click on the invoice and invoice date. And right click on it. And I want to do the unpivot other columns. So if I do the unpivot other columns, that columns will come to the rows. I got the data, proper data approximately. So I got the invoice column, invoice date, and attribute also. So now I want to split these columns. So if you see the data, there is a furniture category and subcategory is a furnishings and the product ID we have. So I want to split this column, the delimiter. So I have used a delimiter here. Each occurrence of the delimiter. So now I got the category here and subcategory here and the product ID. So I'm going to repeat these steps. So I have this data here. So this is the invoice data with me. So this source data. So first select the column 1 and I want to use the transpose. So why I'm going to use the transpose here? I'm going to convert these columns into the rows and these rows into the columns. So first click on the column 1 and click on the transpose. And merge column 1, column 2 and column 3. Merge these columns. With the custom separator. This one. Once it is done, then again I want to use the transpose. So that rows will go to the column section. So click on again the transpose. So now here I want to use first row as a header section. So bring that to the header section. and click on the invoice and invoice date. And I want to use the unpivot on other columns, not on the invoice and invoice date. I want to do the unpivot other columns like a furnishings, technology, machines. So there are so many columns are there. So I want to unpivot that other columns. So that columns will come to the rows. So furniture and technology. So these are the columns. So that will come to the rows. So now I got the correct data. I got the invoice column, invoice date, and this data, category, subcategory, product ID, and the amount also I got it. So here I want to split the column here. So split the column. So now I got the category, subcategory, and this is the product ID, and this is the amount. So now I got this proper formatted data. So for the report purpose. And we have the remaining case studies that we'll discuss tomorrow, the same time. So do you have any doubts in these? So properly we'll get these type of data only, like a address data. So sometimes we'll get this type of data also. So we want to convert the data into this proper format data, the table format. So by practicing, and we'll discuss the remaining case studies tomorrow. Tomorrow same time.
Hi Venkat, I have a quick
Yeah,
question
yeah, yes.
Um, about the sample data. Are you going to provide us about that invoice data, payroll data, and
Yeah,
remaining?
I'll share this data with you. All these case studies data I'll share with you.
Okay, okay, that's it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Venkat,
Yeah, Kaja, tell me.
uh, Venkat, I have some doubts in the SSAS, Venkat. So, can I share